Miracle in the Andes. The Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 took off from Montevideo, Uruguay, on October 13, 1972. The passengers, a rugby team and their friends and family, were headed to Santiago, Chile, for a match. Spirits were high, laughter filled the cabin, and the Andes Mountains below seemed like nothing more than a breathtaking sight. But as they approached Chile, storm clouds gathered, and the pilots miscalculated their descent. Suddenly, the plane lurched violently. A sickening metallic screech filled the cabin as the right wing struck a mountain peak, ripping apart instantly. The left wing followed, and within seconds, the tail section was torn off. Passengers screamed as they were thrown into the freezing air, their seats ripped from the fuselage. The main body of the plane slammed into the snow, skidding violently before coming to a stop. When the dust settled, 45 had been on board. Only 29 survived the crash. The first days. The survivors, injured, freezing, and disoriented, looked around at their new reality. They were trapped in the heart of the Andes, at an altitude of 3,600 meters, 11,800 feet. The temperature plummeted to -30 degrees Celsius -22 degrees Fahrenheit at night, and the air was thin and suffocating. Many were injured, broken legs, deep gashes, and concussions. There was no food, no water, no shelter. They searched the wreckage and found a few items, chocolates, crackers, and small bottles of wine, but it was nowhere near enough. They rationed carefully, each person getting a single bite or sip a day. Days passed, and hope began to fade. On the 10th day, a survivor found a small transistor radio among the wreckage. They gathered around as he tuned it, desperate for news. Then, the announcement came. The search for Flight 571 has been called off. All passengers are presumed dead. A deep silence fell over the group. The world had given up on them. The hardest decision. The hunger grew unbearable. Their bodies weakened, their minds clouded. Their stomachs cramped in pain, and many collapsed from exhaustion. Then came the darkest decision of their lives. One of them finally voiced what they had all been dreading. The only source of food we have left is the bodies of our friends. The group sat in horror. The idea was unthinkable. These were people they had laughed with, played with, loved. But their bones pressed against their skin, and their bodies were beginning to fail. They prayed. They cried. And then, in small, quiet movements, they did what had to be done. It was not about death. It was about survival. The avalanche. Just as they adjusted to their grim reality, disaster struck again. On day 17, as they huddled inside the wreckage for warmth, a thunderous roar shook the mountain. An avalanche crashed down, burying the wreckage under snow. 8 more survivors were killed instantly. The others were trapped beneath the snow, suffocating, clawing for air. For 3 days, they struggled to dig themselves free. When they finally emerged, only 16 remained. The escape. By December, they had been on the mountain for over 2 months. If they didn't escape now, they never would. 2 survivors, Nando Paradu and Roberto Canessa, volunteered for a desperate plan. They would climb out of the Andes, alone, with no map, no equipment, and barely any strength left. They packed a small bag of human flesh for food, tied makeshift boots out of airplane insulation, and began their impossible journey. For 10 days, they climbed. They endured freezing winds, exhaustion, and brutal altitude sickness. Their lips cracked, their bodies shook, their minds blurred. But they never stopped. On December 20th, they reached the edge of civilization. Below them, they spotted a river and a man on horseback. "Help! Help!" they screamed, their voices barely above a whisper. The man couldn't hear them over the rushing water. Desperate, Nando carved a message into a piece of paper, wrapped it around a rock, and threw it across the river. The farmer picked it up, read the note, and his eyes widened in shock. He raced for help. The world had not forgotten them after all. The rescue. On December 23, 1972, the first rescue helicopters arrived. One by one, the last 14 survivors were airlifted to safety. They had endured 72 days in the Andes. They had done the unimaginable. The legacy. The world was stunned. Their story was met with a mix of awe and horror. But when the survivors spoke, they were not ashamed. "We did what we had to do," Nando Paradu said. It was about choosing life. Their journey became one of the greatest survival stories in history, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Even today, their story reminds us. When faced with the impossible, the will to live can conquer anything. The end. Thanks for watching. For more story, please subscribe our channel.